So we'll go ahead and get started. So one of the key things on this is that we are doing multi-link operation. So for a point to multipoint system, and we are the first to be doing point to multipoint out in the market right now. Traditionally, point to multipoint has been done as a single band, traditionally 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. These days, mostly 5 gigahertz. Although we are seeing some 6. So usually, if you're seeing multi-link operation, that's going to be only on a point-to-point solution, not a point-to-multipoint. So basically what this means is your clients are using the 5 and 6 gigahertz radios simultaneously. So they've got a connection back to your central location using 5 and 6 and sending data over both of those simultaneously. So there's a number of benefits to that. A big one here is just a capacity boost. You end up with a lot more bandwidth available to share amongst your clients, letting them use that so you get higher aggregated speeds in theory. You also get lower latency. You get redundancy and interference resilience. So if something's going on that's causing interference on that 5 gigahertz radio, such as a DFS event, data will still be able to continue to work on the 6 gigahertz radio and vice versa. And a big benefit to this is just using 6 gigahertz in general. 6 gigahertz, um, to operate 6 gigahertz outdoors, you either need to have a license or you need to use what's called an AFC. So basically, unlike 5 gigahertz, where anybody can just go out and broadcast as much as they want anywhere they want, with 6 gigahertz, you either have to have a license and get that pre-approved where you're using it, or you do like we're doing here with our solution, and that is that you use what's called an AFC. So the AFC is built into any outdoor 6 gigahertz product that's being used legally in the US. And what it does is it has a GPS that determines where it's located at. And every 24 hours, it reaches out to a third party service which tracks where other 6 gigahertz users are operating. And based on that, it opens up for you and it will tell you which channels you can use and which power output you can use. So because of this, there's going to be a lot less stepping on toes. Now, these days, 6 gigahertz is wide open just because there's not a lot of people using 6 gigahertz yet. And also because 6 gigahertz has more available spectrum than 2.4 and 5 gigahertz combined. So you're going to be able to have more people operating in the 6 gigahertz space before you start running into the interference issues you see today with 5 gigahertz. So a lot of benefits there. But then again, also, once it does get to that point where 6 gigahertz is much more ubiquitous, the rules on using 6 gigahertz outdoors will also make sure that things stay a lot cleaner than 5 gigahertz is today. So we will be talking more about the hardware, but I wanted to show you at least some photos of it here before we get a little bit further on into the presentation. So this big boy here, this is what's known as the Root Plus. So this is our base station or our access point that you're setting up at your central location, up on a tower somewhere or up on a rooftop. And then this guy here is the Leaf Plus. And it is important that we're saying the plus names because there are going to be roots and leafs in the future that do not have the plus on their name. Uh, can't talk about those yet today, but those someday will be coming. So Root Plus is your base station. Leaf Plus is your CPE device. So this is the access point or the client device, I guess I should call it, that is mounted onto the outdoor of your customer's building. Whether that is somebody's house or an office building, that's what each of your clients is going to have on your roof. This little guy here, and then this is going to be connected to an antenna. This does not need to be connected to an antenna because it's built in. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about the hardware coming up. Let's talk a little bit more just in general on the technology behind this. So one of the questions we got asked a lot, because we've been showing this at the WISP America shows and the ISP America shows and WISPapalooza for the last year and a half, has been, well, what do you guys do? Do you have TDMA? What are you doing as far as airtime fairness? And that is the answer. Yes, we do have TDMA. So TDMA here helps reduce latency and basically make sure those users who are active are getting the bulk of the airtime and users who are inactive or not doing a lot don't take up a lot of that airtime. It also makes sure that when those active users, the airtime is shared more fairly amongst them. So another thing here is that we have the smart antenna that's built into our Root Plus. So again, this is your base station or access point. So this guy here has our smart antenna technology built onto it. And this is really important and gives us a nice differentiator from some of the other point to multi-point solutions that are out there. And that's because one of the challenges you run into with traditional base stations is they've got a fixed antenna pattern that's out there, and because of that, usually it's optimized for those clients that are located further away from your base station, and those that are actually closer to your base station tend to have worse performance. And so this kind of solves it here by allowing the access point to dynamically use different antenna configurations in our antenna array to be able to make sure you've got an ideal connection to those users who are further away and those users that are closer together. Also, our algorithm helps us ignore some other sources of RF interference that may be broadcasting, particularly on that 5 gigahertz channel, and help reduce the level of interference you get from those other 5 gigahertz devices. So you get a better signal to noise ratio on your 5 gigahertz radio. And we do offer what are called smart rate limits. So it's not a fixed rate limit, it's a smart rate limit. And I talked a little bit about this on the TDMA. And basically, this is just designed to make sure all of the users have a fair access to airtime and no one user is basically eating up and hogging your airtime so your other clients are getting poor performance while one is just gobbling up bandwidth. So the root and leaf system are managed entirely in Nebula. So it is not Nebula Flex Plus. So most of our networking products here on the Zyxel network side of things are what we call Nebula Flex, where you can use them in standalone mode or you can use them in the cloud. The leaf and root are cloud only. You must use Nebula. They do work with the free version of Nebula. You are not required to have a ProPack license. Um, so just making that clear that everything is going to be done through the Nebula interface. So now let's start talking a little bit about the hardware itself. So on the root here, we are a Wi-Fi 7 based device. So this is key here. So both the root leaf and the root are based on Wi-Fi 7. Now they are not off-the-shelf Wi-Fi 7 because off-the-shelf Wi-Fi 7 isn't capable of long-distance links like this guy is. So we took the standards of Wi-Fi 7 and built on top of them and tweaked them and optimized them for this longer range sort of WISP type deployment. It is a 4x4 radio on both the 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz. So that means four spatial streams on the transmit, four spatial streams on the receiving side of things. And again, as we talked about in the previous slide, it's a smart antenna that's built into the system itself. Um, And then on the client side of things here, we are doing 2x2. So you've got two transmit spatial streams, two receive spatial streams on both of your radios. So in theory, the maximum speed you can get is a 4.4 gigabits per second data rate back to the root here. Although in reality, you're not going to get anywhere near those speeds. But that is in theory. If for some reason you're doing this across a small parking lot or yard, those are the types of speeds you'd be able to theoretically get. Daniel, I think we'll be getting to that question here in just a second. So let's talk about a little bit more about the root and the leaf on the hardware side of things. So the root has a 10 gig SFP plus port, so it can support up to um, 10 gigs of throughput going into it. It is SFP plus, so you can have a nice, basically as long as you want cable reach to be able to provide data to that. And that's the only cable that you must run up the tower and connect to this. Now, when it comes to power, you can use PoE plus. So we do have a RJ45 port, a weatherproof RJ45 port on there that you can use entirely just for providing PoE power, or you can power it directly with DC power. So we support 24 to 48 volt DC power directly into the unit. So you can use either or, and that should cover basically any installation environment that you have out there. You can also use that RJ45 port in addition to using it for PoE to power up the route. You can use that for data as well if you don't want to run fiber. So you can do either or fiber or copper for the data connection, and then you can use PoE or direct DC power to power up the device itself. On the Leaf side of things, the Leaf Plus, it is PoE only. It is PoE Plus, so 30-watt PoE. So you do provide PoE power to it to power it up. And it has a 2.5 gig Ethernet port coming out of it. So you've got 2.5 gigs going into the home or business, which then you'll connect to your router or switch or whatever device it is you're using inside the client side. So let's talk a little bit here about outdoors here. So the Root is rated IP68, and the Leaf Plus is rated IP55 for keeping water and dust out of the devices themselves. Wind speeds, Root Plus is 55 meters per second, as is the Leaf Plus, so they can handle pretty strong winds. Should be the same just about any other outdoor point-to-point or point-to-multipoint system out there. And then temperature-wise, the Root can operate in temperatures down to negative 40 C, which is also negative 40 Fahrenheit, up to temperatures of 70 C, whereas the Leaf can handle temperatures down to negative 30 C or up to 60 C. So when it comes to antennas, again, smart antenna is built into the Root. The Leaf does not have any antennas built in. You're going to need to provide your own antenna. Initially, we thought everyone would want our antenna, but one of the key things of feedback we've gotten at those WISP shows has been that um, everybody wants to bring their own antenna because basically the number one thing determining the quality of your connection and the speeds you can achieve is that signal to noise ratio. And based on the environment, you probably want different types of antennas to, narrow down that beam as much as possible or get you as high as dBi boost as possible. So you can absolutely bring your own. In fact, when we did some of our proof of concept testing, we were using third-party antennas to test things out. So what you need to know is it needs to be a 2x2 antenna. Ideally, it would be one that handles both 5 and 6 gigahertz in one antenna, but if you'd like to source different 5 and 6 gigahertz antennas for the Leaf, you absolutely can do that. Again, they just need to support 2x2 going into them. Right now, all of the Leaf Plus units that we have, excuse me, um, they have an SMA connector on it. In the future, that will change to an RP-SMA connector, but these days it is an SMA connector. So that is something to keep in mind when you're getting the cables that you need to connect your antenna to our Leaf Plus. Now, we do still offer our own antenna that if you want to use it. So the antenna that we provide is a 14.6 dBi gain for both the 5 gigahertz and the 6 gigahertz radio. So you absolutely can use those if you do want ours. So people have asked about what was going on. So if you've been following this for a while, you know we were asking for some proof of concept testers last fall. We ended up scaling back the number of testers, but increasing the amount of time we left the hardware on site for testing. So that way, as we gathered feedback, we could push out updates and tweaks and get things just the way we want. So our first proof of concept was in California, starting in December last year. It went very well. And you can see here on the Leaf side of things, we were using some different antennas than the ones we get as we were testing maximum distance, maximum throughput, things like that. And then we had a much more of a point-to-multipoint solution here with 10 client devices set up out in Texas for us. And I want to say that's where the photo on the cover came from of the person climbing the tower to install our hardware with the American flag in the background there. So what are our launch plans? I know we've been talking about this for quite a while. So what's going on? So right now we're planning to launch this in June. Um, we have the hardware ready. We have it on site. It just came in on Friday. We have the software ready to go. So where are we going to launch this? This is key here for you guys. We are not launching this through our normal distribution partners. This is a specialty product aimed at the WISP space, and we've been looking for distribution partners who are familiar with this WISP space and who sell other products that need to go along with our Root and Leaf Plus in this WISP space. So people who can provide those antennas, people who can provide additional cabling, surge protectors, things like that, and people who can help you and answer the questions you may have setting one of these up. So the first one of those we're bringing on is Streakwave Wireless. We are in the process of onboarding with them right now, and that will be probably the first place that you'll be able to buy the Leaf and Root Plus, hopefully early next month, just in a couple weeks here. Um, we are looking at adding some additional ones that we're in talks with, and we'll announce those as those become available for us. Um, and then we are looking to do some try before you buy kits, and this is also something that we're still discussing with Streakwave, is exactly, what form these will take. Our hope is that we could do something like a 60-day demo where you take the hardware, you get to install a basic demo kit, and then at 60 days you get to choose to keep it or return it back to us. But again, that's still under negotiation, and the exact details, we still need to work those out, but that's how we're planning to do this here. And with that, guys, that is the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in, again, using Q&A or using chat. I'll do my best to answer the questions you have. Again, this is a new product for us and a new vertical, so I'm still learning as well. Another reason why we need, some distribution partners who already are in this space and already have some of that knowledge to help us out. Daniel is asking for street prices, what we should expect here. The Root itself is, I believe, going to be $1,200. The Leaf Plus, I want to say, is $230. I need to double check that. I believe it's $230, and then the antenna is like $130, $150. Let me pull that up real quick. I should be able to look that up really quick for you. Okay, I was almost right. On the Leaf, it is going to be 220. I think I said 230. So we're looking 220 for each Leaf Plus that you want to buy. 1200 is right on the Root. And then for the antenna, if you want to use our antenna, we're looking at $120 per antenna. At least at the moment. I think that might actually go up, but right now we'll say 120. Let's see here. So the question here on the antenna, so your antenna needs to support 5 and 6 gigahertz. So whether that is a single antenna that supports both of those, or whether you want to use two different antennas, it's going to be up to you and what you want to use. I know we've talked to people who prefer it all in one. We've talked to people who prefer it separately. Um, so the either way you want to do it. The key thing here is that they're going to be able to have two inputs for each channel. So if you have a combined antenna that supports 5 and 6 gigahertz, it'll need to have 4 antenna connectors going into it. Whereas if you're just doing individual antennas for each band, it needs to have 2 connectors in it. Any point-to-point capabilities? Not with this. This is going to be a little bit too expensive, I think, for point-to-point. I mean, nothing's stopping you from doing it. But we should have some point-to-point solutions later this summer that we're going to be announcing, both Wi-Fi 6 based and Wi-Fi 7 based. Today, we're just talking about point-to-multipoint, though. Any other questions? Feel free to send them in. And of course, you can always reach out if something pops up later, reach out to your salesperson. If you're here at this webinar, you're probably already one of our reseller partners, so you can reach out to Andy, David, or Jacob, and they can help try to get the answers for you. Can I discuss deployment method? Sure. So the Root Plus itself is, smart antenna as we discussed. It covers an area of basically a 90-degree window. So if you want to cover 360 degrees, you would have 4 of them. And basically you just put it up where you want it. There's not a lot to do there. On the leaf side of things, there's a little bit more work because you are going to have to aim them or aim the antennas. Excuse me, aim the antennas that you hook up to them. So in order to help you do that, let me jump back a slide. So there is a signal indicator here on the outside of it. So one of the challenges we have with Nebula, right, is that Nebula, takes a couple minutes between when something changes and when it gets updated in the cloud. Um, and obviously that's just too slow for doing any sort of aiming. Um, so that is now we do have a signal indicator on the outside of the leaf, so you can adjust the antenna and basically in real time get an indicator of the signal strength. And basically we give you, no signal, low signal, medium signal, strong signal. I believe are the indicators that we have on there. But yeah, other than that, it's basically just like our other Nebula devices. It is zero touch, and there's almost nothing that needs to be configured on the leaf itself. It's pretty straightforward. Any other questions? Um, Connectorized AP. You mean for the base station, like a route that doesn't have the smart antenna? Right now, no plans for that for point to multipoint. No, the smart antenna is really a huge differentiator between us and a lot of the other solutions that are out there right now. It makes a big difference as far as, making sure you've got the best noise floor possible, making sure you've got the best connections. If that's not what you're asking, I'll stick around here for another minute so you give you time to type something up. But if that was what you're asking, then no, no, there are no plans for that. And while we're waiting to see if any more questions come in, I'll just go ahead and give my email. My name is Sean. My email is seanr@zyxel.com. So Sean is spelled Shawn. So SHAWNR at Zyxel.com. That's so you can email me directly. Daniel said he's done with questions, and he's been the only one asking questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Keep an eye out. And if you are interested in testing this out or finding out more, do reach out to your salesperson, Andy, David, or Jacob, and let them know so we can put you on a list to make sure that you're getting updates as we actually launch this product here. But hopefully, we should be doing a big launch announcement in a couple weeks here with Streakwave. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you at one of our future webinars.